But as things stand currently right now, it's an overall buff to the Vanguard because of the size 2 nose guns basically do size 3 damage now. The velocity on all of them have been increased by quite a bit. The BRVS is much more ammo efficient than, say, putting on the Revenant. And any of the ballistic cannons that you can put on are not going to hit agile targets at all. So it's like they're overclocked all the time in terms of fire rate. But now that mixed loadouts are a little bit more important, having that other weapon group that's not normally available to the Sentinel because it takes up the EMP, because having more than one weapon group to be able to manage the capacitor drain and the ballistics ammo usage is going to be more important. Have a size 5 equipped at all because velocity on size 5 weapons are terrible now. You don't want to use a size 5 weapon against a smaller ship. I mean, it'll do a lot of damage, but you're going to have a lot more difficulties hitting, and in a weapon setup like on the Vanguard, you're going to have issues because it's going to combine the weapon pip currently. That felt pretty good. I've got a theory about weapons and capacitors, since capacitor charge is divided among all the powered energy weapons. Thinking it might be better to try to run as few energy weapons as possible. The ballistic repeaters on the Vanguard are also very ammo efficient compared to running, say, like a Revenant on the nose mount. So what I'm thinking is, what we want to do is we want to run like a Rhino on the front, take advantage of pumping all the capacitor charge into the Rhino, and then using the efficient ballistic repeaters to deal with most of our... How is my Vanguard already damaged? Okay then, PTU. But yeah, we'll use the efficient ballistic repeaters to deal the most damage. Oh, I can't get in. Oh, there we go. It's just slow. So, yeah, look at the capacitor charge in that Rhino. 126 shots. Now, the reason why we don't go with a size 5 in this case anymore is because the size 5 only has, even among the repeaters, only has 700 meters per second velocity. With the current setup on the PTU, all the other smaller repeaters, like size 4s, have 1,400 meters per second velocity. So there's a significant drop-off. Cannons are also at, regardless of size, are also at 700 meters a second. I think they should probably revise that a little bit. My feeling is size 5 repeaters should probably be like 1,000, and then size 5 and up cannons should probably be like 500.
Launch complete.
Well, let's lift off from Lorville here. And there's that fancy new HUD as well.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel complete.
The Vanguard nose guns, the 4 quad little guns on the front, they are hitting like size 3s now. So the Vanguard got a pretty significant firepower boost. Alright, so that takes care of that guy. Alright, so it looks like Crusader wants us to do an assessment. So I guess we'll fly over there.
Optimal travel initiated.
Yeah, those quad guns on the Vanguard are now hitting like size 3s, but yeah, hitting like new size 3s. Now, I mean, overclocked weapons did more than the baseline damage anyway, but still. The trade-off is the size 5 is not anywhere near as good against fighters as it used to be, or smaller ships, I should say. Just because of that incredibly low velocity on it now. Instead of going for a BRVS, it might be worth putting a couple of energy repeaters on instead, because 126 shots on the Rhino alone is quite a bit, and you might not want to have that much ballistics. But as far as what you can put on that has high velocity on the Vanguard right at the moment, the BRVS is much more ammo efficient than, say, putting on the Revenant. And any of the ballistic cannons that you can put on are not going to hit agile targets at all, so. Also, because of the front gun is somewhat vulnerable given its position on the Vanguard, it still might be a good idea to keep a couple repeaters, or a couple laser repeaters, just because you don't want to lose that only energy repeater and then run out of ammo and then basically be completely defenseless. I mean you also have the turret on top as well, but that requires a second player.
Complete.
There's the new Crusader. Quite nice looking. Blindingly bright right now.
Optimal travel initiated.
There's the new Crusader. Look at that.
Landing complete.
Alright, let's go grab some weaponry.
Landing.
So yeah, we'll grab a couple of these laser repeaters.
Nice choice.
And what we'll do is we will pair up a couple of the laser repeaters on the nose. Okay, so that will give us some good ballistic ammo efficiency, because the Vanguard's ballistic repeaters are quite efficient.
Yeah.
The only other real option against smaller ships would be the Revenant, but the Revenant is not anywhere near as ammo efficient as the ballistic repeaters are now. So we'll want to hang on to those. And I think what we'll find with this loadout is that it's going to give us plenty of capacitor charge for the energy weapons and quite efficient ballistic weapons. But we will have to manage the weapon groups manually, is the downside. So let's put all the energy weapons on the same group. Alright, so there we go. So that gives us 67 and 42 on the Rhino.
Launch complete.
I think that's plenty of sustain. Alright, so let's go hunt down this bounty. And all the weapon speeds are currently the same, so 1400 meters per second. That's overall a net buff to the Vanguard.
Quantum travel complete.
Vanguard is a little bit more sluggish now, though.
Quantum travel.
But then again, so is pretty much every ship, so. The Rhino drains out a little bit faster than those smaller repeaters. Man, asteroid field is laggy. Want the weapons to recharge faster, I can allocate power on the power triangle. That also increases their maximum cap. You can see right now I've got 100% power put into weapons, and you can see that the maximum cap has increased for the energy weapons. Of course, that means if you look at my shields aren't charging anymore because I have no power allocated to shields. And when I use my boost, the boost isn't charging anymore. However, if I reset the power back to default, now boost is charging and shields are charging again. But can move it in increments. And it affects how the ship performs. Okay, so let's grab this bounty if we can. running fewer energy weapons or means that those weapons are going to be able to continually fire for longer, just due to the way the capacitors work. But based on the patch notes, they've been talking about really trying to push people towards having mixed weapon loadouts.
Complete.
If they're going to do that, though, I think they need to... Well, it depends on how they end up sending the weapon velocities in the end, but when they combined all weapons to a single pip, they might have to allow you to turn that option off. Because, for example, if I wanted to right now, I could mount a size 5 weapon, or even, say, a cannon on the Vanguard. But by doing so, it would cut my weapon velocity in half, because cannons are currently half velocity compared to repeaters. But it would be good to maybe still do that, and you could maybe still power off the cannon, or just not use that aim point for it anymore. But if they force a combined pip on all fixed weapons, that'll make it more difficult to be able to hit those types of shots, because it's going to combine everything down into that one pip that's aiming at 700 meters per second velocity. So that would be a good option for, instead of lock, auto, and targeted, like for gimbals, they could add another option where it's not forcing the combined pip. Oh wow, he just jumped right around, didn't he? Yeah, it feels like a pretty good. It feels like a pretty good pacing, having the two smaller energy repeaters plus the Rhino, and then the ballistics. It also helps that those Vanguard weapons now hit a lot harder too. The Vanguard specific nose guns, that is. I mean, almost every weapon size 1, 2s, and 3s do. Size 4s are about the same. Like, based on what's currently there, only got like 10,000 total shield, but it's all on one face now on smaller ships. That felt pretty good. I like the new HUD, but there are a couple of things that make it a little hard to see sometimes. Like some of the marks are not really well defined. Like the little chevron that indicates your velocity on the scale doesn't show up too well. Some of them might be alleviated by rendering the HUD as a higher resolution, though. Telcath says, what kind of T5, you mean S5 weapon? Do you have equipped at the moment? I don't have a size 5 equipped at all because the velocity on size 5 weapons are terrible now. Even the repeaters are only 700 meters per second. So it's going to dramatically lower the velocity of all the other weapons. At least the targeting pip for them. And it's only, and by going to a repeater, you're only getting about another 300-ish damage. Also, I think we just locked up. So at least in the current iteration of things, I don't feel like it's a good trade-off. All cannons and size 5 weapons have 700 meters per second velocity. All repeaters have 1,400 meters per second velocity, unless there's also size 5, in which case then they have 700 meters per second velocity as well. So based on that, don't really feel it's worth it right at the moment. Now, if you know you're going up against something a lot larger and less maneuverable, then it might be a better option. Especially a size 5 cannon, because they do quite a bit of damage now. But for anything with any kind of agility, I don't think I'd recommend going with a size 5 on the Vanguard, at least as the way that things currently stand. I also wouldn't recommend, if you're planning on putting any kind of ballistics on, I would not recommend keeping the Revenant either for a Vanguard, because if you want ballistic damage, the Vanguard-specific ballistic repeaters are more efficient. At least in terms of their ammo management. Also, the Vanguard specific nose guns now are equivalent to size 3 in the new rebalance. So it's a bit of a firepower buff anyway without the without having a size 5 on the nose. No problem. Very nice looking, but very laggy. Yeah, exactly, Midnight Storm. Yeah, I think what they should do for the size 5 repeaters, I mentioned this earlier, but they should make the size 5 repeaters probably like 1,000 meters a second. And then make like size 5 cannons like 500 or something. That'd really help differentiate their role from the way that smaller weapons are balanced. So like, kind of like how missiles are right now. Size 1 to 4 are sort of like missiles, and size 5 are torpedoes. Well, the same thing for weapons. Size 1 to 4 are basically meant for smaller ships, and then size 5 weapons are basically the torpedoes of ship weapons. So basically, you don't want to use a size 5 weapon against a smaller ship. I mean, it'll do a lot of damage, but you're going to have a lot more difficulties hitting, and in a weapon setup like on the Vanguard, you're going to have issues because it's going to combine the weapon pip currently.
The next shuttle is approaching the station.
So that means if you equip that size 5 weapon, you're going to effectively make the aim point for all of your other weapons as if they were firing at 700 meters a second.
Please clear the hatch.
It's going to make things a lot more difficult for you. But I think if there's a difference between repeaters at the lower sizes from cannons, then there should be a difference from the larger sized repeaters versus cannons in terms of velocity. It still wouldn't be a great option for tackling other fighters, or other smaller ships, but at least they would have some kind of differentiation to them. 1,000 meters a second is what the old Vanguard repeaters fired at as well. But as things stand currently right now, it's an overall, there's an overall buff to the Vanguard because of the size 2 nose guns basically do size 3 damage now, and the velocity on all of them have been increased by quite a bit. So instead of like 1,000 meters a second on the repeaters, the energy repeaters, it's now 1,400. Instead of like 1,200 on the ballistic repeaters, it's also 1,400. So extra damage and extra speed is good. I mean, other ship weapons have also had damage boosts, but those ones in particular are quite helpful for the Vanguard. But we'll see how they end up balancing things out in the end. There is no overclocking weapons or shields anymore. There's no shield hardening either. The way you can make your shields stronger is by using the power triangle in the ship. Same thing you can do to make your weapon stronger or your engine stronger. The power triangle now does what a lot of people thought that it did previously. But, I mean, a lot of weapons have the fire rate that they had when they were overclocked before, so... Anybody want to buy a space whale? Yeah, once we take off here, I'll show you how the power triangle affects things. But now that mixed loadouts are a little bit more important, having that other weapon group that's not normally available to the Sentinel because it takes up the EMP, I think that's going to be interesting. Because having more than one weapon group to be able to manage the capacitor drain and the ballistics ammo usage is, I think, going to be more important. But a lot of monitoring ship weapons and ammo and shields and engines is a little bit more important and a little bit more tactical now.
Launch complete. Landing gear rejected.
So I'm going to put all of the laser weapons on the same group. That way I can use the second stage of the trigger to fire the ballistics when I need to. This allows me to conserve ammo. So when I use the power triangle to allocate power to weapons, when I go beyond 33%, it gives extra capacity to those weapons. So you can see if what I'm doing by default with the weapons that I have equipped and powered, I have the Rhino at 42 rounds and each of the GVSR is at 67. So if I put extra power into weapons beyond the default, the Rhino goes to 44 and the GVSRs go to 71. Again, if I put more power in, then that increases the cap as well. And the more power I put into that system group, the faster the weapons will recharge as well. Again, if I go to 83%, so I basically have nothing in shields and engines right now. So for the engines, if you look at the boost gauge on the left, when I'm using boost, basically old afterburner, it's draining that out, and then there's a delay before I can use it again. Then it will start charging the boost back up. If I dump into my capacitor into engines, the boost recharges much quicker. And if it goes into that red line, then I'm not able to use the boost at all until it gets out of that red line. The more power you put into engines, the less the drain as well. Also, if I power off, say, the Rhino, look what happens to the GVSRs. They get all the extra charge that the Rhino wasn't getting, so they get a lot more ammunition in each of them. So by equipping a mixed loadout between ballistics and, at least that's the goal, equipping different types of weapons means that there's a lot more options. And with shields, I can't show you that because my shields aren't damaged currently, but actually, why don't I just power off my shields?
Shields offline.
That'll drain all the charge out of them.
Shields online.
So if you look at the charge rate of the shields, Now if I dump power into the shields, they'll start charging a lot quicker. So for smaller ships, ships with size 1 and size 2 shields, you don't have to manage shield facings anymore because they're just all the same. So it's more, in smaller ships at least, it's more about that power management. Yeah, it is very cool. It should hopefully, once they get things tuned a little more, make combat far more tactical. But that's why I'm thinking with the Sentinel, because one of its weapon groups is totally devoted to that EMP currently, it might not be as useful. Because even between like the Rhino and the GVSRs, even between those weapons, the Rhino will drain out before the GVSRs. So even if you were going pure energy weapon build with GVSRs and a Rhino or whatever, then having the Rhino on a separate weapon group so you could stop firing it to give it a chance to reload while the GVSRs were still firing, even that would be beneficial for having multiple weapon groups, not just having ballistics on one and energy weapons on another. Well, at least that's my thoughts anyway. Oh, so much lag.
Quantum travel complete.
So yeah, if you watch here, I'll fire the Rhino and the GVSRs. And you'll see the Rhino actually ends up draining out faster than the GVSRs. Not a lot quicker, but significantly enough that it might be worth, and depending on what energy weapons you have equipped, because remember, they share the capacity across all of them. Might be better to have things separated out into groups. There's the new Crusader. Much more white now.
Initiated. Quantum travel complete. Shields running fire. Ammo low. Kill. Ammo low.
See, if I had more energy weapons, I wouldn't have been able to have sustained fire for that long. Because the capacitor charge would be divided amongst all of them. Yeah, it definitely makes you think a lot more in combat in terms of when to attack, when to be defensive, when to reassign power.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel complete.
But yeah, the weapon fire rate is higher than it was previously. It's like they're overclocked all the time in terms of fire rate.
Contact.
But yeah, if I had a size 5 equipped on the Vanguard, it would cut my velocity, my weapon velocity, at least the targeting pip for it, down by half. So I don't think that's quite worth it, given that you only gain like 300, 400 DPS on a repeater.
Hydrogen fuel at 75%. Ammo low. Ammo depleted.
Oh wow, laggy.
Weapon systems destroyed. Ammo low. Ammo depleted. Ammo low. Ammo depleted. Shields under fire. Contact.
Stop jumping all over the place.
Kill. Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel complete.
Let's try another one.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel complete.
Yeah, it might be possible. Boost also affects rotation rates now too. And generally rotation rates have been nerfed across the board. Across all ships. I haven't done a one-to-one comparison, but I think light fighters handle a lot more like medium or heavies now. At least what's in 3.14.
Ammo low. Kill.
I think throttle management might become more important as well. It's a lot harder to just turret a ship like it was than it was before, basically. Like, you can basically ignore the power triangle if you want. Like, you don't have to use it, but it's definitely, if you want to get peak performance, you definitely need to manage it now. Ooh, I got bumped. Let's just keep doing them until we run out of ballistic repeater ammo, just to get a baseline.
Quantum travel initiated. Quantum travel complete.
for some of those larger targets where you can get on target for longer, it's probably worth it to have less energy weapons, because that will allow the energy weapons that you do have to have more ammo capacity, since they'll be the only weapon drawing from the capacitor. That'll just allow you to get more sustained damage on it. Uh-oh, I think we locked up again. PTU for you. Uh-oh. Yeah, we're gonna have to get off of Orison again. Based on that. I don't think I'm gonna do that right now.